SImon, welcome to the LogiPharma Podcast.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for the invitation.
No, we're thrilled to have you. It'd be great if you could kind of introduce yourself to the listeners, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of got to the role that you're in. Yeah, it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, sure. My name is Simon Bosch. I'm a QuickSTAT responsible for the markets of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, so the DACH region. I started with QuickSTAT about a bit more than a year ago, and have about 5 years or 4.5 years experience in this pharmaceutical specialty courier business. And the time before I was in the automobile logistics, so also very challenging, but kind of different.
But kept very busy, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, all the pharma topic is very interesting, and especially all these cell and gene therapies is a really, really interesting thing. And even
definitely.
before I did start with that job, I was reading articles about that because I really find it quite interesting and modern.
Did it feel quite full circle then, if you've kind of been reading about it and now you're kind of, that's the kind of day-to-day job?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
My craft weren't too bad either.
I mean, I'm no expert. I work a lot on the kind of LogiPharma portfolio, do kind of content and report writing, but cell and gene therapy is kind of one of the big talking points at LogiPharma, and I'm not the expert. So it'd be great if you could kind of talk a bit more about the topic, give us kind of a short overview. I can learn from you because I'm not the expert, but you'll be able to kind of give me a nice little wrap up of it.
Of the cell and gene in general, yeah.
Yeah.
As well, it's I have more the logistics kind of view actually, but it's part of the advanced therapies basically. I think it's let's say hot topic because it's very it's more or less, or often it's a new chance or a last chance for patients. Very interesting and modern treatments, very targeted and personalized, and especially if you look at the autologous and also allogeneic version of it, it's really extremely personalized compared to other medicines, and I think this is the big challenge and the big opportunity. Well, generally, I think there are cell therapies, there are gene therapies. So if you add cells to patient genes, if you edit genes, and the cell and gene therapy, the mix of both, like for example the CAR-T therapy that is very popular. Well, but I mean, it's not all really new. For example, cell therapy is also like if you have a stem cell transplantation, this is also a cell therapy, and this is done for many years. But all the new ones with especially also with editing of genes and like, as I said, CAR-T is a very new approach.
Definitely. I guess you kind of highlighted there, it's quite the most personal kind of time part of medicine there. Is that kind of, do you feel a bit more pressure when you're working in that kind of space rather than just kind of your usual medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, often it's the last chance for a patient, and especially because at the end it needs to get back to the same patient. So there's not a lot of room for failure. Absolutely.
But kind of makes everyone kind of work more towards a target as well, and kind of be kind of more passionate towards it, I guess, which is great.
Absolutely.
Could you kind of talk a bit more about the kind of difference between the types of therapy? So it's allogenic and autology.
I'm German, so I can't say for sure, but I heard it's autologous. So
that's perfect. That's what I was hoping you'd jump in and save me there. But kind of a bit more about the differences there, and I guess kind of critically, how do these impact the cell and gene therapy supply chain?
Yeah, well, autologous is if you have it from one patient, so you have apheresis, so take out blood, and to get, for example, for the CAR-T, you get the T cells, you gene edit the cells to be targeting the disease you want to target, and then you give it back to the same patient. So it's like a circle, and this comes up with a lot of logistics challenges for sure. I mean, not speaking about all the technical things that are really difficult. I only see the logistics. For example, the first CAR-T therapy is an autologous version from the same patient back to the same patient. And for the allogeneic, you have one donor, and this one donor well, this is treated in a way that it can fit to several patients and not causing an adverse effect. Because usually if you just add cells to somebody else, you will have how do you say, the system is reacting on the foreign cells, and then you need to have a special treatment that this doesn't happen. But for example, you can address then with one donor, you can have like 20 or even more than 20. I heard something like 40 patients. So you have a ratio from 1 to 20 or 40. While in the autologous version, you have 1-to-1 with all the treatment. And so this is also from a cost point of view, it's very effective. And you can have it like from the shelf. So you can be much faster in providing the right therapy and not having the round circle.
Amazing. With just kind of when I'm at LogiPharma, they're kind of very kind of keen to talk about new technologies and kind of all the kind of innovations, I guess. It's just kind of, there seems to be a lot there. Is this something that's kind of really quickly developed in like the last 5-10 years with the kind of rise of new technologies, that kind of having an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I said, the cell therapy, like there have been things before, but really these new kinds of, I think the first CAR T was in 2016 or 2017, I think.
Wow.
That was released, so it's quite new. And in the meantime, we have, I think, in the US, the FDA have approved more than 40 therapies like that in the meantime. And I think just last year we were like 9 or something, and 50 in European Union, so quite a lot. So compared to the very short time they're on the market, they're booming.
It's been a fair jump, yeah. And I guess when we're at LogiPharma, all everyone wants to talk about is kind of AI and the impact of like that kind of technologies like that. Is that something that kind of like has been useful, or is it kind of not quite ready to kind of see the benefits of that yet?
That's a good question. I think this can for sure help. The gene editing, at least for the gene research, this will for sure be making a change. For the logistics, it's also a hot topic, but at the end, especially for this kind of logistics, you need to be very flexible, and it's a very white glove service that needs to be provided. So it's probably more human interaction than AI solution here, from my point of view.
Definitely. What are kind of some of the key obstacles then? I guess we kind of know that the cell and gene therapy obviously has massive benefits, but are there any kind of key obstacles that kind of stand in the way of getting these life-saving therapies from manufacturer to patient?
Well, yeah, I
imagine a few.
Life-saving. So this is probably the biggest thing, because at the end it's the patient in the middle, needs to work for him. So you need to be there to have the apheresis or to take the cells. You need to be there in time to have the treatment. So at the end, it needs to work for the patient. So this is the first big obstacle. And at the end, I think usually in a lot of cases, this was probably more or less the last chance. So you have a zero tolerance for failure here. Or if you do one, this can be can be fatal at the end for patients. So I think looking at that it's a much higher or much more pressure on the shipments for all the people involved. So this is maybe a different. Not saying that other kind of treatments are maybe not that important. So there might be life-saving shipments for other treatments as well, for sure. But here it's really, we have the one patient, you have the pieces from one bringing back to the same patient. I think this is really something where you have a very personal touch, for sure.
Definitely.
And then at the end, all the stuff coming with the challenges coming with transport of living cells. So you have tight deadlines. You need to be there in time. You need to deliver for the right date to the hospital or to the patient. And this is a very limited time for the whole circle. So time is always a topic for sure.
With the kind of journeys, I guess, being so personal, is there kind of like after kind of one shipment has been made and kind of one has been delivered, or is there a lot of kind of review process of, okay, this is how we got on this time delivering that, how could we kind of improve that in the next time? Or is there kind of any kind of, are you constantly looking at how you could be more efficient, or kind of, is it kind of less of a one-on-one basis, I guess?
For sure, always. I mean,
Mhm.
you should do it right on the first time, for sure.
Yeah. That's
But
that's the dream, is
whenever,
getting something right the first time.
but but for sure, if there's something, you can always improve. You can check
Mm.
for better flight option, optimize the network, things like
Mhm.
that. Um, One of the main things is for sure communication. So if you
Yeah.
um, this is something where I think together with the customers, you really have to a close and trusted communication. I think this is one of the most important things. Um,
Mm.
for example, I just had a case with a well, requested delivery 8 a.m. in the morning in Switzerland. And it turned out that this is really difficult because customs they close at 5
Oh God.
5 p.m. more or less, or 5:30 depending, and they don't have a lot. So usually they stick to the rule. And but at the end, it turns out it was not about the 8 a.m. delivery. It was
Mm.
about the lifespan of the cells during the transport. So
Yeah.
we found a solution with the customer said, okay, we pick up later, we drive to the border, and then we do the delivery the
Mm.
next morning. So we were a bit later than 8 a.m., but this was perfectly fine because the lifespan of the cells was given.
Yeah.
And so we had a comparable cheap solution, not cheap, but it was compared to an onboard courier or something like this. This was a much cheaper solution or better solution and perfectly fits the
Yeah.
requirements. And this was due to very good and close communication.
Mm. Definitely. You must have a good view of those kind of like how on earth are we going to solve this problem? How on earth are we going to jump through this hoop to kind of deliver at that specific time? Do you have any more of kind of those, or is it just kind of each is individual, its own individual case? We'll kind of solve it when we get there.
Yes, sure. For example, we had one of the challenges I had in the past was to send a cell product to
Mm.
another continent, and the problem was to ship it. It was like half a liter of liquid in a very big box. It was not
Yeah.
able to be tendered because freight would have taken too long for the lifespan. Um, and so it needed to be transported in a cabin because it was very sensitive to shocks. So we needed to
Gosh.
find a solution to bring the box on board and with the aircraft, not with no X-ray. And this needed to be flying in the cabin. So we had a lot of communication with the airline, with airport security, and
Mm.
we found a solution for that. So this is quite challenging, something like that. You need to be very flexible. You need to have very experienced staff. That's something that's important.
Mm.
Um, that are well solution orientated for sure.
Definitely a lot of problem solving skills then.
Yeah, for sure. That this comes with the topic for sure. Yeah.
Must be quite a quite satisfying though at the end of the day, knowing that like, oh, we were able to kind of work around that and everything kind of went to plan.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Mm. Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
we would.
at the end, I mean, in this case, it was not like life saving, but
Mhm.
it's life improving for the patient, and
Yeah.
was a great experience. And you're always learning with that
Mhm.
for sure. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the
It's
interesting
just,
thing.
yeah, it's you speak so passionately about it, and I guess kind of like knowing that the patient's on the other end is just such a big contributing factor.
Yeah. Sometimes you forget about it because it's already technical
Yeah.
and very much just well, which flight and did it go on the flight as planned and this. But at the end, it's a patient. At the end, that's sometimes
Exactly.
you forget, but you should always have in your mind.
I guess it must be kind of when you start kind of putting it into perspective, it must be easier to kind of like focus on the logistics and then kind of think about that when you kind of everything's paid off.
You mean for
Like yeah, if you've kind of yeah, if to kind of tick off the logistics, kind of make sure that kind of eyes on the prize, and then
yeah,
it kind of just pays off by the end, which is great. We
yeah.
kind of touched earlier on obstacles. Are there any kind of how can people go about overcoming these obstacles, I guess, as a logistic provider?
Well, as I said, I think a staff or team that is really solution orientated and flexible and very experienced. I think need to have
Mm.
experienced people. So we have, for example, we have a whole we have a dedicated team just for cell and gene area of
Mm.
the business. And I think this is very helpful because we have a lot of experts that can help in special situations.
Mm.
And one other thing regarding the shipments, so really just about the how we do the transport, I think a very close monitoring is very important. Um,
Mm.
So see if it was on the right flight, if everything goes along. So not just wait for any feedback from the airline. Maybe you have a solution like with a GPS tracker that you see, okay, it was not leaving. For example, you can some trackers can have a geofencing, and then you can make sure that that the shipment actually left the airport. And you don't need to wait for the airline to confirm that it was. Sometimes you even get a confirmation, and then later on, oh no, it was an offload in the last second, something like that. We had a case like that as well. So especially to overcome this and looking at the very short transport time we're having. Okay, so we had one. Well, I had not one, there was some, but I can remember one very well because we really put a lot of effort in the lane mapping. So we were really discussing a lot because we had a 24-hour lifespan from, in this case, Spain to the UK. So there was customs involved. Then on this lane, you often have small planes. So often you have not. So passenger luggage always has priority. So you have always the risk on offload. So we tried several things and made a lot of, well, we made a really decent route planning and lane mapping and or risk assessment. For example, you can book with higher priority. This comes with certain costs, and it pays off at the end because the risk of offload might be lower, and the communication is faster from the airline. Then you always need to have backup solutions. I think this is something very important, especially if you're talking about shipments that might save patients' life. You always should have a backup. I think that is also one of the very important things.
Absolutely. I guess having good relationships as well with kind of all your kind of legs in your supply chain.
Yes, absolutely. Trusted partners is key for sure.
Yeah, trusted partners. Yeah, exactly. Kind of at the end of the day, kind of no matter how much technologies, I guess, behind it, it's always you're always kind of dealing with people, which is, kind of people are kind of, well, just, it's really good when you've got that good relationship. It makes it all the more easier, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
And
are there any kind of
not just the partners, also with customers, as mentioned. I think the cooperation and it's cooperation at the end.
Yeah, I guess there's always kind of a human touch behind any kind of new technology or kind of new developments.
This is also something, well, compared to my former life in the automobile sector, in the pharmaceutical, that's something I really like. It's much more kind of a cooperation instead of a supplier and sponsor relationship. So this is much closer.
Definitely.
And you're much more involved in this. It's not just do this, and it's more like how can we do it the best way? Maybe this is also something to talk about, not about just the targets, but about the needs. One example with the 8 a.m., this is a perfect example. It was not that the target was 8 a.m., but the need was the short lifespan. So this was a perfect example to say, okay, we should discuss about the real needs and not just giving targets.
Exactly. Definitely. I think that's the kind of it's definitely at the heart of kind of LogiPharma. I was in Lyon last year, and kind of the more I chatted with kind of everyone that was there, all the kind of attendees, speakers, vendors, everyone just had the same kind of collaborative mindset in mind, which was just so refreshing compared to kind of other industries. Everyone's so kind of people focused, and they want to sit down and chat and kind of have the solutions there. It's just, it's really nice to kind of see that, and you can see that in the work that they produce as well.
That's a great spirit. Absolutely. I can confirm. And I never had this before. This is really, I think this is special in the pharmaceutical area or the pharma area. And it's more cooperative spirit for sure. Maybe also because at the end it's together for the patient.
Yeah, there's a goal at the end of kind of every day. So perfect. Sorry. Are there any kind of special requirements with regards to logistics when it comes to cell and gene therapy? I know you've kind of touched on a few, but in particular for clinical and the commercial phases there, is there anything in specific that we haven't kind of touched on?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question, actually. I mean, for clinical, I mean, both are absolutely, there's no room for failure as well. Because usually also in the clinical phase, you have patients and that needs to get treated. And but I think for clinical trials or in a clinical phase, I think the cost is not so much in focus. It's more you need to prove that everything works.
Yeah.
And probably, I mean, not necessarily, but you can choose your battleground. So you know which company might work for your study, which might maybe be easier for the regulatory stuff. And but for the commercial phase, I think there's a much higher cost pressure. So at the end, you need to find ways to scale up the volume. So you still have no room for failure, but you have a much higher volume, and at the same time, you should bring the costs down to make the treatment at all possible, because at the end, someone needs to pay for that. It's coming with very high costs because it's a one-to-one treatment. Or I mean, the allogeneic version where you have one donor and several patients. This is for sure one of the solutions, and also a trend at the moment. So this will help from a let's say technical point of view, but also from the logistical point of view, that we can optimize lane mappings. We can discuss with the customer about a better network with, for example, with well, let's say solutions with CDMOs placed all around the world to have shorter shipments. Especially if you look at the allogeneic, it will be good, or it would be better to have it stored at several places to have a short way to the patient at the end.
Definitely. With both of those processes, do you have like a kind of one that works, that you kind of know that at the start of each kind of phase that you'll kind of do it in a certain way and then adjust depending on the case, or is it always kind of a case by case basis?
I think it's probably rather case by case decision. It's also depending on the country. I think especially in the commercial, if you have new country launches, this might have a completely different way to approach. We just brought for one customer, we had a market launch to Saudi Arabia with the first of this kind of medication and treatment, and this was a whole project. This really took some time to bring it to life. I think also there start working with some time in advance, so as early as possible. I know there are more important things about for the producers with all the legal stuff, getting the patients and everything, but at the end, logistics needs to work as well. So there's no. It's good to take us into the discussion as early as possible. So I just had a customer. We had a really really good workshop, and it was really quite some time before we planned with the first shipment. And this was very helpful for both parties because we had all the time to discuss all the things in a very early stage and set up a real project to plan this first delivery at the end. This will happen somewhere next year, so there's still plenty of time.
Brilliant. I mean, you must kind of work with in and out of so many different countries. Is it just kind of must be in the kind of 10s, 20s, 30s, if not, kind of so many different parts of the world that you guys kind of work with?
Yes, basically. We
All
can
over.
basically deliver. Yeah, it's a matter of where are the patients, and at the end it needs to be somehow logistically
exactly.
So I think there are certain parts in the world where it's at least, let's say, very very challenging to deliver and market launch. But basically, there's not a real limitation, and I think we are happy to support a launch in any country at the end.
Exactly.
With a good. We also have some really good people taking care for the regulatory part of the shipments that can give at least good advices, and this is helping the customers also a lot. So some kind of, at least for logistics part, some kind of consulting might be helpful. Especially because I think so the first therapies of this kind, they were launched by really the big pharma, but there are more small and medium-sized companies or producers starting to launch CGT products. So even there, I think it's even that's even more important to have this kind of cooperation, consulting, communication. It's really important.
Definitely. Yeah. I know we kind of touched a bit earlier on cooperation, but with regard to kind of with the customer more in mind, kind of what experience have you made in cooperation with customers? Any lessons learned in terms of logistics for cell and gene therapy, or any other kind of experiences you've got there?
I think we touched most of the points.
Yeah.
It's really it's as I said, cooperation, misunderstandings. If you
Yeah.
just have targets instead of needs,
Hmm.
I think it's yeah. At the end, it's communication. We need to
Mm.
um, work closely together.
Yeah.
I think I don't find a really good example besides the ones I just said, but at the end,
Yeah. Definitely. I guess as well, is there kind of a kind of problem with kind of attracting and retaining talent in that kind of in the cell and gene therapy kind of logistics, that kind of area, or is it kind of you're getting a lot of good talent coming in?
absolutely. I think
Mm.
that's challenging for
Yeah.
everybody more or less. So I
Hmm.
think you also need to train your talents.
Hmm.
And I mean we have the customer, we have the business, so it's a lot of also training on the job. So I wasn't I, also for me. I mean I'm not
Yeah.
so long in this area, but it's interesting and we can
Hmm.
learn very quickly. And
Absolutely.
I think you need to be also attractive for the right people at the
Yeah.
end, and probably the ones that are keen on doing this and the ones that are keen on saving patients, they will probably look for companies that can provide the
Hmm.
solution.
Amazing. And are there any other key messages that you'd like our listeners to keep in mind about kind of yourselves, about cell and gene therapy before we go to LogiPharma, I guess?
Um, well, maybe what would be helpful as well as have a partner with. So at the end, you need a trusted partner.
Yeah.
Close cooperation, start early with the discussion. I think these are the most important points.
Mm.
Um, then if you get down to details, I mean, a very good, well, online or digital support for everything. So just as I mentioned, these state-of-the-art GPS, GSM trackers, I
Hmm.
think they are really making a big change to have the right, well, packaging. I mean, we didn't even touch all the part of the packaging. I mean, we could have a half
Yeah.
of an hour just talking about that. The minus 196 degrees shippers, things like that. So,
Hmm.
uh, well, very specialized as well. Yeah. And
Yeah.
as I said, you need to have the right partners and a good cooperation. I think that's it. That is at the end, this is key.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think, like, I mean, as you said, we've kind of cell and gene therapy has grown so much over the just kind of few years that it's been in place. But do you think that this is just this will only kind of grow more rapidly and kind of grow more as kind of the next 10 years go?
For sure. I mean,
Mm.
I have not the real figures, but there are so much treatments still in the
Mm.
development, and if you see the standard development times, I think the next 10 years there are for sure there are plenty of solutions on the
Yeah.
market and new things to come. As I said, the allogeneic version, this is probably also a solution for the cost topic, because
Mhm.
at the end I think this is really a hot topic as well. Somebody needs to pay for the treatment, and they're
Mhm.
really expensive, and at the end
Yeah.
it can, well, this might have a bad impact on the like public
Mhm.
insurance, health insurance, things like that.
Mhm.
And allogeneic might be a solution for that, to bring costs down and
Mhm.
be able to treat all the patients.
Brilliant,
So this
amazing.
will be for
I think
sure
yeah,
one
one
attractive
final
thing.
yeah, I've always got a kind of one final question, I guess, for you. But in terms, because resilience and supply chain, and kind of, I guess there's been so much uncertainty over the past kind of few years when it comes to that. How can logistics providers, kind of specifically in cell and gene therapy for yourselves, kind of how can they be more resilient? I guess is it coming kind of investing in the right tech, kind of having the right people? I guess just a mix of everything we've talked about.
Well, some topic, I'm not a specialist in all the
Yeah,
regulations, but I often heard
yeah,
about that the regulations are not very harmonized. This might be one of the
mhm,
things that can help to have a more resilient supply chain at the end, because
mhm,
as soon as we cross borders and we have
mhm.
entries somewhere, this is always
Yeah,
putting a certain risk on a shipment. And I think to have a more, I mean, it's a very quite new kind of treatment, and customs might have, might ask different questions. And I think a certain harmonization at that point might help to have the supply chain more resilient and generally standardize things. This would be helpful.
Amazing.
Really,
Is there anything?
I'm not a expert on regulation stuff.
No, I mean, you sold me. I was sold on it. Don't worry. Is there any kind of last kind of takeaways you'd like to kind of give to the listeners before we kind of, I guess, head to LogiPharma?
Oh, just again, communicate with your suppliers. This is key.
This is key. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Simon. This has been so lovely. I feel like I've got a much better knowledge now of kind of cell and gene therapy. And yeah, can't wait to see yourselves all at LogiPharma.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Also looking very much to the LogiPharma, and
anytime.
looking forward to meet a lot of people there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been before, but it's just a massive venue. You kind of really kept going. There's so much going on. So I'm sure we'll bump into each other as well at some point there.
I hope so. It's the first time I will be there, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, amazing. Oh, lovely stuff. Oh, the venue's massive. You'll be do a lot of steps, and step count will be up. Lots of fun kind of activities going on. I'll be at the 5K. That's kind of I'll always make sure I go there, but all the kind of tastings, lots of nice food to try, lots of great sessions. So I think, yeah, we'll have a lovely time in Lyon.
I think so. Pretty cool. Really looking forward to. So thank you very much for the interview and having me here.
Thank you so much.